Hello, I'm Alison and I am down in our tank room today. I've been chatting with one of our researchers, Ashwini, about turtles and a very unusual ability that they have. You might have seen our film about this. If you haven't, check it out. But we're going to be finding out a little bit more about turtles and about Ashwini's work as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us what you do at the museum first up.
Thanks, Alison. I'm a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow at the museum, and I work in the vertebrate division. I broadly study, I would say, all reptiles, but these days I'm also studying mammals.
Ooh, cool.
That happens a lot in research where you think you kind of end up in a place where you never thought you'd be. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I study genomes, and I also study morphometrics and how animals evolve and how they end up in the form that they are in today.
Cool, very cool. Now, we were focusing earlier on turtles specifically, weren't we?
Yes.
And their ability to breathe through a certain orifice, their cloaca. What exactly is a cloaca?
So cloaca is an opening of the digestive system at the rear end of the body, in case of turtles. In case of snakes, it's in the bottom of their body before the tail starts. And all of us have a cloaca, right? It's our bum. So that's pretty much what cloaca is. And turtles can respire through their cloaca, which is fascinating. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah, it's a very unusual, very useful ability, as we were finding out a bit earlier. What makes the cloaca good for this type of respiration?
I think one important thing is that it has a lot of blood cells. So when there's a lot of blood flow to a particular region and a lot of blood cells, it's also where oxygen absorption can be very high. If it has supportive organs and cells that with extremely high surface area where gas exchange can happen, and I think that's one of the reasons cloaca is a very potent place where respiration can happen when the animals are not that active.
Absolutely. Now we've got a shell here of a turtle. Do we know what species this is?
Okay, this seems to be like a green turtle shell. It's a sea turtle, so it doesn't actually have to do cloacal respiration because it's in the ocean and it can actually move a lot and change the temperature that it lives in. So it's one of the species and it's one of the groups where cloacal respiration does not occur, but equally fascinating because they basically move around the entire globe. Sea turtles are super cool.
Absolutely brilliant. And I love this specimen because we can see the inside here, and it really highlights that turtles cannot get out of their shells, can they?
No.
They are pretty much attached.
Absolutely. So I guess this sort of reduces their chances of respiring through skin, which other animal groups like amphibians, like frogs and salamanders, all of them can breathe through their skin. And I think probably one of the fact that they have this massive shell and the amount of surface exposed is low, and also they live in very different environments in terms of sea turtles. So breathing through skin is not really an option. I mean, even we can breathe through skin, but it's very low. It's almost negligible compared to our active breathing.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Not as much, not something to rely on.
Yeah, I'm very glad we don't breathe out our rears as well. Although I think it would be quite handy from time to time.
Oh, you should be very careful what you wish for, because that would mean that we'd have very thin skin, like amphibians do, and that is going to cost us a lot more in terms of health in very different ways.
Yeah, sure. Now, turtles are an absolutely fascinating group, but they're not the only group that you work on. You mentioned you work more generally. So tell us a little bit more about your research.
Yeah, so my research looks at how a genome evolves. So all of us have DNA, and our whole DNA is called a genome, and different organisms have genomes that are different structurally. So what I'm doing here at the museum with other scientists like Jeff and Anjali is we're trying to come up with a new method to look at genomes and how they evolve, especially structure of genomes. So you might know of chromosomes, right? Mm-hmm. So chromosomes are different in number, their size is different, and what they contain in terms of the information is also different. And we are interested to understand how, when chromosomes change in the structure and the information changes, how does it affect form and function? How does it affect change in morphology? For example, was there a change in the genome that gave rise to the fact that turtles can develop shells? Right? So what changes are those? Is it related to the structure of the genome, or is it just a particular gene? I mean, this is just a very vague example, and maybe someone has already worked that out. But what I'm doing is more at a macro level to look at all vertebrates or all tetrapods. Tetrapods are animal that has 4 limbs. Yeah.
You're in absolutely the right place. The museum's huge, vast collection of all
Absolutely.
kinds of different animals. How do you go about doing your research? Are you working with the collections?
Well, the DNA genome part is all in the computer. It's not as glamorous as this room
That's
looks
still cool.
like.
That's still cool.
Yeah. But the other part of like assessing form and function would be we scan specimens, we get their 3D skull shape or body shape. And to do that, we need access to natural history museum collections where you have this massive amount of information. And now you can even do genome sequencing and DNA sequencing with specimens that have been stored more than 200 years ago, where they didn't even know what a DNA was. So no one even predicted how these specimens could be used in the future, but today we can do a lot more things with them.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And who knows what advances we'll come up with in the future, what we'll be able, not what new things
Yeah.
we'll be able to do with these collections. That's absolutely brilliant. Oh, it's fascinating research. And thank you so much for chatting with us today and for telling us all about turtles and their interesting ways of respiring. But we will let you get back to your research, but thank you so much, Ashwini. Thanks so much for watching. We hope that you enjoyed that. If you did, let us know in the comments. And remember, give us a like and subscribe to keep up with our latest video content.